Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. E.
And I am Mortimer the Authenticator, and we have the duality of man.
Yeah, we're doing a topic that we attempted to do 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was having internet issues, and that forced us to stop. So hopefully, we can get through it this time without any interference.
Chaos won last time, but hopefully they have vanished beyond the Eye of Terror once again, and we can actually do this.
Yep, it's the chaos culture vogue because once you actually start to categorize them, they do fall into the typical chaos categories. You got let's say corn, which would be the violent criminals, and who else did we say was corn?
Yeah, and the Muslim apologists
Yes.
or the Islamist apologists.
Yeah.
You've got
The
the academic theorists representing Zinch. You've got the rank
actual
and file.
politicians.
You've got the rank and file thoughts being Slaneshian.
Yeah.
And then you've got the revival of ancient diseases and woke specific diseases like monkeypox representing Nurgle.
I would also say that the body positivity thing is Slanesh as well, because Slanesh is just excess
Yeah,
and
excess hedonism, um, lust, gluttony, greed, all of it for its own sake.
yeah. So let's start with corn. Breaking down corn. I feel like this is the simple one. Corn is like blood, violence. Blood for the blood god, skull for the skull throne,
Hmm.
and we've been seeing a lot of people in like a big major cities where these criminals who are being arrested 20, 30 times get released because the DA doesn't actually want to do their job, and they're like trying to do this thing called get rid of a cashless bail, but that
Yeah,
just
instantaneous bail thing is definitely cornate.
yeah, they just let the criminal off back into the streets, and they go and commit crime because here's the thing: if they feel that they're not going to be punished, they're not going to be held accountable for their actions, for the damage they're doing to society, they're just going to go out and do it again.
Yeah, and can we just call George Floyd a cornate martyr at this point? I think we can. Because I mean, the blood and fire that was born from that whole rigmarole was definitely a thing.
Yeah, it was almost like the first war of Armageddon, where they did the ritual and then Angron and the Kornite invasion started.
It's it, unironically, if those of you who know anything about Warhammer know the sort of stages of a chaos invasion of a planet or a chaos corruption of a planet, and are we or are we not literally in the early stages of one of those? I mean, for the love of God, the Sisters of or the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are actually a thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I immediately went, kill it with a flamethrower, kill it with a bolter. I don't want the Eye of Terror, God damn it.
Yep, Slaneshi cultists active in America, but it starts out in stages. The chaos uprising. It always starts out with like say like one step beyond what a normal person would agree with, so that they're not too sure, but they could be convinced of it, and then it slowly gets pushed farther and says, you know what? Hey, maybe we already accepted this. This next stage isn't that out of bounds. Maybe we should try going that, and it just keeps pushing the envelope.
And then the frog of civilization is boiled, and then wait, what do you mean you want to set up a demonic altar in the town square? Or one of the first stages of chaos corruption IRL seems to be. Have you heard of this thing called glowing up? Glow up as opposed to grow up.
Oh yeah, do you remember the article where they had all these like college kids who like had they looked before when they were in high school, back when they were living in I believe they said conservative households, versus how they look now in college. I mean, God, they look like chaos worshippers.
It's like the jury is out whether it's more Zinchian or whether it's more Slaneshian, but it's definitely one of them.
I mean, some people it's more Nurgle.
Well, Nurgle happened after they've lost all their youth from their residual youth from their 20s, and then the wall very much belongs to Nurgle. The wall that everyone hits eventually. I think the
Yeah.
wall is Nurgle's contribution to this whole thing.
For those who aren't exactly sure what we're talking about, the thing about chaos from 40k is that it corrupts and it can actually cause physical mutations. So when you become, whispers of chaos and you're imbued with chaos energy, it can actually like mutate your body like physically.
It's very much a physiognomy thing where eventually your soul becomes so corrupt that it begins to show externally.
Yes, and even if you're not familiar with 40k, when we like describe chaos to you, and then you're looking through 40k images, you will know chaos when you see it.
Yes, yes, you will.
And going back to the Kornite aspect of this whole destruction of our civilization, like it really is blood for the blood cloud because so many people have died because these DAs they don't hold people, they get out and then they cause so many people like the I believe the Waukesha attack, the guy that drove through that Christmas parade, he was like out on the street on bail before
Yeah,
all that
blood for the
happened.
blood god, literally. And then
Yeah,
and then there's the other half of the Kornite aspect, which is the is is the Islamism apologia, like the whole we like Osama bin Laden now because he's on our side and he hates the West too and he wants to do like a radical reformist thing, blah blah.
yeah,
And
and
it,
so many people were cheering during the October 7th attack here in the West, cheering on the terrorists that, butchered innocent people. But it seems that now that Israel is showing, okay, we're sick of your shit, and now we're just going to annihilate you.
I
Now they're
mean,
calling for a
Queers for
ceasefire.
Palestine is literally a Slaneshi splinter cell recognizing their own in the Kornite ones and being like, "Yeah, go them."
Yeah, well, question: who do you think would be chaos undivided? And for those of you who are unaware, chaos undivided is where you worship all four chaos gods at the same
I
time.
don't think we've gotten that. I don't think we've gotten that far yet because I think there's still at least nominally some kind of war going on between those who prefer Zinch and Slanesh and those who prefer Korn and Nurgle. At least nominally. It might not end up that way, but I think if you were to ask the average rank and file Slaneshi or Zinchian member, they wouldn't have much positive to say about the Nurglite or Kornite ones.
Yep, I get
Uh,
it. I got it.
until the establishment shows up and then they all pull rank and go, well, at least we're among our fellow radicals, and then
No, no, Dalton, you just said it. That's it. The establishment is chaos undivided.
unfortunately, honestly, I think
It
we'd be
makes,
better off with the Tyranids at this point.
but it makes sense, don't you? The the establishment has their hands in all of this to some degree or another.
And all of the various radical subgroups have a hand up the establishment's ass and puppeteering it. So because here's the thing. Zinch comes in with the academia, with the critical theory, with the neo-Hegelianism, with the Frankfurt School nonsense. That's Zinch's contribution to this, and then that academic consensus goes on to inform the politicians, the media, and the corporations, which then gets sold to the Slaneshi indulgence type people, and that's where you get the glow up phenomena and the day in the lifers and all the rest of those types of people. And then eventually it trickles down to the point where the worst of the worst violent dregs show up, and then there you get the Kornite aspect. And then after all of this has festered and all of this has come home to roost, then you get like monkeypox and the rebirth of the Black Plague in San Francisco. And speaking of Nergalite things, Scat Francisco, and then all four of them have slowly made inroads. I still think we're only at the beginning of the Chaos invasion, though, which is the scary thing.
Yeah, well, to speak about Tzeentch for a minute, Tzeentch being the god of change, not even good change, but just change for the sake of change.
Yeah, and entropy for its own sake, kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the things about Tzeentch is that the worshippers of his that form cults are referred to as cults of change. And the moment I heard that, I think, God, that sounds like feminism.
Well, it sounds like social justice in general, which again, because Tzeentch's contribution to the corruption is the theoretical framework and the neo-Hegelian nonsense that goes on to inform all the rest of it, at least on paper.
The reason why I compared it to feminism is that, a lot of what the original feminists did was like take groups of, housewives who were essentially happy in their original lives and roles,
and incense them.
And gaslight them into believing that they were actually being oppressed. And Tzeentch is the god of gaslighting. Like, he will, like, look at what he did to Magnus the Red.
Well, I mean, okay, to Tzeentch's credit, and I'm literally playing Chaos God's advocate at the moment, but to Tzeentch's credit, his manipulations always come more in the form of like the Grima Wormtongue Whisperer, the kind of manipulative court magician sort of thing. That's why of all of them, Tzeentch is the one that I could almost vibe with if it weren't for that obsessive need to change everything thing that he does.
Yes, but even if he helps you, he'll keep changing everything until you're
and then you'll wind up on the bottom eventually. But that's what I'm saying. I don't like any of these, but if I had to, if I was absolutely obliged to, at least Tzeentch would let me get my Randall flag on, so we could at least do something.
Let's talk about Nurgle, and just like Nurgle, I think is one of the most obvious, like the disease-ridden, drug-addicted zombies that are just wandering through our cities.
Yeah, again, Scat Francisco, the rebirth place in the west of the Black Death, for God's sake, or monkeypox, literally a variation of a pustule-creating disease that only affects orgiastic gay men.
Not only that, but there was actually a drug that I believe was like heroin, fentanyl, and some sort of horse tranquilizer that was literally referred to as the zombie drug because it zonked you out and also caused your flesh to rot.
Yeah, also bath salts while we're delving into the Nergalite contribution. Because bath salts was apparently a whole thing. And I mean, fentanyl just by itself is honestly enough to probably contribute something to Nurgle. Because, I mean, George Floyd was probably a champion of corn, all things considered, but what ended up killing him was the fentanyl.
Yeah, and it's just like, one of the most disgusting things is when Gavin Newsom had the Chinese Communist Party over to visit California, and they just cleaned up all the filth for the communists, and I'm like, you could have done this literally.
Yeah, it's literally, I'm not going to clean up the city for you peasants who I don't give a fuck about. I'm going to clean up the city for people who I actually give a damn about looking good in front of.
Just like, that should just be like a complete mask off moment. If California reelects Gavin Newsom, then it is beyond all hope, and we should exterminate him.
Yeah, like again, like all we need to do is like fill the San Andreas Fault with nukes, set them off, and then push push California out into the sea until it eventually sinks like freaking Numenor.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm on the verge of calling for the exterminatus of Canada as well.
Well, I mean, if there is a Zentian, or yeah, if there is a Zinchian champion anywhere, it's Justin Trudeau and his ilk. Because God damn it, he's like I'm literally expecting him to start growing feathers like a stage 1 Zinch champion at some point here.
I mean, not only that, but don't forget that he was the one who set up May, medical assistance, and dying. Got to get those skulls for the skull throne somehow.
True. But yeah, like seriously, like what was the one from Warhammer Fantasy that was like the reoccurring? What's his name? Lucius, the one who, if you took pride in killing him, he would just gain your face on his skin or something.
Oh, that was in the 40K. He was Slanesh, Lucius the Eternal.
Yeah, that Justin Trudeau might well be that our planet's equivalent of him.
Yeah, like Trudeau has like screwed up Canada that like they essentially have no freedoms. They have freedom until the government says that they don't.
Literally, I mean, he made a announcement about the trucker protests and made the trucker protests out to be the villains. If that isn't a sign of, oh, by the way, I have the government power to revoke your freedoms, I don't know what is. Unless we forget that the World Economic Forum, and in particular Klaus Schwab, has their hand up Justin Trudeau's ass at any given moment.
I think one part of Zinc that we didn't consider would be the ESG money and
Yeah,
investors the company were getting, because it's like a total Zinc thing. Like they pump these companies full of money to adopt these woke ideas and to put them into their products and services, and then eventually they pull the money, and customers hate them now, so they're not going to spend money on them until they just start collapsing.
yeah. It's literally Zinch shows up in academia, does his subversion and Grima worm tongue manipulation thing, and then that goes on to inform the corporations and the governments, and then it turns into ESG and DEI, and the world is plunged into 1,000 years of darkness. Like literally, if we were in the Stephen King universe, I would be expecting Randall Flagg to show up any minute now.
Now, talk about Slanesh. I mean, Slanesh is fairly obvious. Like, we're currently experiencing a culture that just is really
I mean,
no holds bar, no
OnlyFans
shame.
is basically Slanesh's altar at this point.
God, I mean, not only that, but you also have the fat positivity movement. Just eat however much you want. Doesn't matter how much weight you gain or how much you destroy your body. Just it's okay to just keep eating, and if anybody tells you not to, they're
And I mean, Balenciaga. Anyone? Do you remember that whole thing? The leatherware for teddy bears stuff.
yeah, that was just freaking creepy. And also, Slanesh, the more you go into the Slanesh, the more degenerate you become. I mean, you know, drag shows for children, you know, all these pornographic books found in
Yeah,
school
we
libraries.
will
It's just
convert your children.
it's just I I genuinely cannot understand how these people can look at themselves in the mirror and see themselves as the good guys in this.
Because Zinch did his part extremely well, and they all believe that they're in the right now. It, that's why, for as much as Zinch is simultaneously the most appealing of the four, if I had to choose, he's also the most dangerous, because all of the other inroads that the other three have made are because back in the early 20th century, the Frankfurt School and the deconstructionalist, postmodernist, neo-Hegelian types did their thing, and now it's a cancer eating academia from the inside out, and that cancer is spreading from academia to politics to corporations to culture, and now we have to watch as our favorite things are literally raped to death by chaos corruption. Unironically, like we went from Mystery Incorporated about 5-10 years ago to Velma in the space of one iteration. We
Yeah, I
went.
mean, you go. I'll talk after.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying because and when we have forces, in our country, that are trying to push back about this. I guess what you wouldn't call the forces of the Imperium, with our own God Emperor, as the memes say. That's how.
It's amazing how that meme magic works, isn't it?
But just like the Emperor in 40K, the forces of chaos are actively trying to destroy the Emperor at all costs. But
And talk
you
talk about a Nurglite champion. Look at Joe Biden and tell me he didn't make a deal with Nurgle. I will not believe you.
because really, here's the thing. Like in 40K, you will have like the forces of the Imperium, and they will go to this like I don't know, like this planet, and they'll be like, investigating, like trying to find the enemy, and only to then realize that, oh no, the guy next to me is also a chaos worshiper, and he's stabbing me in the back.
Mm-hmm. It's
Like it's it's so insidious. Like because the thing is, these people will lie in wait and pretend to be normal until they're in a position where they're capable of like basically like staging an uprising and taking power.
well, and getting outside of the conceit of Warhammer for a second here. The same is also true if you swap 40k and chaos for Lord of the Rings lore and Melkor. It's literally the evil cannot create, it can only distort and corrupt. Again, look at the before and after glow up pictures. Tell me that isn't exactly what Melkor would do if he actually existed. And tell me that's not what Slanesh and Tzeentch would do if they actually existed. And I mean, again, for the love of God, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are a thing. And I'm about ready to start inventing the bolter so that we can deal with this, because I don't want an Eye of Terror. I don't want to be I don't want to end up like the Dark Eldar.
I mean, and speaking of the forces of evil corrupting. I mean, I think the obvious example of that would be with the whole fact that you can't even question transgenderism in 2024. Like you have like I believe the American Medical Association has put doctors in a position where they literally have to affirm it.
Well, and here's the thing. They call it gender affirming care, but here's the thing. The studies have been done on how transgendered people's brains work, and most of the time when genuine gender dysphoria is presenting itself, it's because the fetus was dosed with a contrary kind of sexual hormone when they were in utero, i.e., male to female trans people have more estrogen than they should, and female to male ones generally have more testosterone than they should. So if we're actually going to be gender affirming in a way that would make sense, why don't we give the boys who have too much estrogen a little bit more testosterone to balance it out? And why don't we give the girls with too much testosterone a little bit more estrogen to balance it out? That would actually be gender affirming care, because it would allow for the gap between the biological sex and the gender expression to be narrowed in a way that would be psychologically healthy. But no,
Because
instead we dose people with already too much estrogen with more estrogen, and we dose people with already too much testosterone with more testosterone, and they end up killing themselves, because why not?
just like if we actually, cared about human, well, that's the thing about chaos. Like chaos does not care about human life. It will gladly like spend the lives of their worshippers in order to increase their power. Like it will
Yeah, they want
sacrifice
to
them
murder fuck reality
gladly.
to death over and over and over again. That's literally their only impulse.
Yeah, and like people will say that, oh, the Imperium doesn't care about human lives only because it can't afford to. Otherwise, it will be destroyed by other
Yeah,
things trying to
we're
attack them.
literally in a war with eldritch beings who want to murder fuck reality to death. And that's not even including the aliens with like Tyranids and orcs and so forth. Although Tyranids and orcs very much operate kind of in the same way as Chaos does.
Here's like, and here's the thing: like they're saying the Imperium like oppresses people like psychers. Well, here's the thing: like the Emperor only oppressed psychers because chaos exists. After his plan, if his plan to beat chaos would have succeeded, he would have freed the psychers. Like his plan was to ultimately turn humanity into a psychic race.
He wanted basically to recapture the lost knowledge of the Eldar, which allowed them to create gods from scratch whenever they needed to.
Yeah,
The
and
problem was the big four were so effective at murder fucking reality to death, um, that he sort of was like, okay, before we try to build new gods that will actually be useful for us, we kind of have to do something about the fact that reality effectively has cancer.
I don't know. I don't know if the Emperor would have built new gods because remember his whole thing was about like there are no gods at all, and like
True, but in the same vein as he wanted humanity to be a psychic race, I think that if he had successfully ganked the Big Four and the warp was purified, he probably would set those psychers to work figuring out how the fuck the Eldar created gods as like
possibly,
servitors and
but
tools.
possibly, but I don't think he would have referred to them as gods. He probably would have like called them something else, like something
Servitors,
like
probably.
yeah, or like warp entities. But I don't think that he would have referred to them as God and literally have people worship them.
No, but in fairness, in the height of the Eldar Empire, they didn't do that either. They saw gods as basically uh, extra dimensional robots that they could program with things they needed.
Now, getting back to chaos, like, so how does the Imperium fight against chaos, and how does it try and stem off, like the spread of chaos and chaos corruption? Well, they have an extremely rigid and controlled society that is bordering on fashion. It's more like
It's a
theocratic
theocracy.
authoritarianism. Yeah, but like it's extremely rigid and controlled because it has to be. Because once the seed of chaos is planted, like you don't know where it's going to spread or
Yeah,
how deep it's going
the
to
whole
spread.
conceit of the game is subtle manipulation, eventually becoming radicalization, eventually becoming eldritch distortion. And right now, we're in the radicalization phase. I don't want to get to the eldritch distortion phase if it's all the same to y'all.
I mean, like it's the same metaphor of having a glass of water in a glass, and introducing one drop of poison. The one drop of poison spreads to the entire glass, and now the entire thing is poisoned.
Hmm.
So, like, one of the things that progressives always complain about conservatives is that that they're too rigid or too limiting. They're saying, they're saying like, oh, we just want to do what we want to do. Well, here's the thing about human beings. Sometimes the thing you want to do, you shouldn't do, and isn't good for you. Sometimes the thing you want to do will actively harm you.
Well, but here's the thing, and this is the difference between the movement back in the '90s and the movement now. Is back in the day, it was a Herculean effort to try to convince people that not all gay people were pedos, for example. But we've gotten to the point where at least a certain percentage of the LGBT movement actually chad yeses to the pedo accusation. Hence the we will convert your children. And that's why people like me are sitting there with, the LGB Alliance and Gays Against Groomers and so on and so forth going, it took us 30 years to get to the point where people wouldn't automatically assume we were pedos. Could you not stop ruining it for us, please?
Yeah, like there were obviously lots of gay people who aren't pedos, but like the thing about chaos is like it'll it'll blow right past the place where normal people would like to stop.
Yeah. And this is why I make a distinction of I am gay, but I'm not LGBT. And it's nothing against trans people or bisexuals or lesbians or what have you, but I have to make that distinction because unironically, the LGBT part of the movement seems to be the part that looks at every negative stereotype about gay people from the past and says, yes, we should do that. Yes, Chad, yes to that. And we should consider it a moral good to do those things. Which, yeah, no, it's where we go from reasonable levels of acceptance to, are you sure you're not secretly worshiping Slanesh?
I think one of the problems is that we've like erased like all some like standards like morals and principles, and basically like just drilled everything down to whatever you think is right. Because here's the thing, we our culture has replaced has replaced the phrase "the truth" with "your truth," which is
Which is
absolutely absurd.
so Zinchian. It like again, that is Zinch's contribution to this whole rigmarole. And here's the other thing. You don't even need necessarily to bring morality into it. We have all but abolished the idea of meritocracy, period. Like it's gotten to the point where the academically endorsed perspective now is that objectivity is a childish delusion that we shouldn't even aspire to. That meritocracy is a harmful delusion that we shouldn't aspire to, and so on. Like the fact that objectivity and meritocracy, morality or no freaking morality, have become seen as this deluded state to the point where I've seen people actually compare the ideas of objectivity and meritocracy to the tooth fairy or something. Um, the the fact that like Vosh and company will regard adults who believe in objectivity and meritocracy in the same way that we might regard an adult who believes in the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy is pure Zinch.
I hate Vosh, and I'm pretty sure Hassan is a chaos champion.
Yeah,
But
I think to his credit, I think Hassan is a little bit less further along than Vosh. I think Vosh is the current leader of the horde of Zinch at the moment.
yeah, I would say Hassan is a chaos champion, but Vosh is a demon prince.
Yeah, that about makes sense. Or at least he's well on his way to being crowned a demon prince.
But going back to what you mentioned about meritocracy, do you like one of the reasons that meritocracy is essentially dead, at least when it comes to progressive circles? Do you remember the Harvard president plagiarism scandal?
Yes, I do.
You remember what their defense was?
Objectivity doesn't real derp it a derp.
It was also, I mean, who doesn't plagiarize? Like lots of people do
Um,
not plagiarize, and it's also
people
supposed to
who
be.
people who have actual skills and original thoughts in their head, just just throwing it out there. Like,
It's also supposed to be like you know at the baseline of academia that you will not be accepted if you steal other people's work. Like that's supposed to get you like shunned from academic society. But like no, they just roll out the defense and act like we're just supposed to all brush this under the rug. And she's still working at Harvard, even though she plagiarized for her doctoral dissertation. So it's
well, of
like,
course, she's a high priestess of Zinj. Why wouldn't she maintain her job?
and actually, saw a study. Uh, I don't have the link with me right now, but it said that like the average IQ of college graduates is dropping.
Yeah, they're all a bunch of midwits.
Yeah, so like you are spending thousands of dollars, and hold on, the thing I want to know is, are the IQs of people going in higher than when they're exiting?
Well, probably because again, they're not getting paid to be educated. They're getting paid basically to be uneducated. They're they're being paid to be, or they're paying to be Zinchified effectively because we should honestly we should have burned Hegel at the stake. I'm sorry. Everything that is wrong with academia is, when you get right down to it, it's Hegel's fault. Hegel and Rousseau should have been burnt at the stake, and we could have prevented this whole mess.
It really just reminds me of that one quote from, I believe it was Mark Twain. I was educated once. It took me years to recover.
Unironically, that is how we are, because not only are the ideas that they have categorically the opposite of any standard of truth, but they actually think that it makes them better and smarter than the kid who goes to a trade school, or a kid who just, reads a lot on his own, and so like the autodidacts of the world. In a sane world, the intelligentsia actually would be the intelligentsia. But now they're at best the pseudo intelligentsia, and at the most extreme, the counter intelligentsia. They literally unlearn things in college rather than learning them.
Here's the thing. Like it used to be the actual good ideas that will confer you the status. Now you just get into these positions, are given status, and then whether or not you're actually smart doesn't matter.
Yeah, because for some reason it's no longer how you get to conclusions that matters. All that matters is your conclusions. Because somehow we've forgotten that it's not the conclusions you come to that make you intelligent. It's how much effort and intellectual rigor you put into getting to any given position that is a sign of your intelligence. Again, we
It's
have
like
literally created institutions of higher unlearning rather than higher learning.
yeah, like you start with the conclusion the way they want the world to be, and then have to somehow MacGyver their way into somehow explaining how it might map onto the real world.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance and abstract and irreducible abstraction are now signs of intelligence according to academia, which again, if we're playing by 40k rules, that is Zinch all over.
You
Cognitive
know, I,
dissonance is a virtue. Abstraction and nebulousness is a virtue. Refusing to come to defined conclusions is a Zinchian virtue.
although I have to admit, the ability of some of these people to just deny object reality right in front of their eyes so blatantly is, to a degree, genuinely impressive.
Well, no, it is, and that's what makes it insidious, because you take people who actually do have meaningful degrees of raw intelligence, and you put them through the Zinchian paces, you put them through the unlearning camp, and then their own raw intelligence will be the thing that maintains their cognitive dissonance. Because if you teach them how to think their way out of logical consequences of their actions and or their beliefs, they actually wind up basically being their own jailers because their own intelligence will basically be the thing that keeps them in bondage.
It binds me.
Once you teach them how to delude themselves, you don't need to teach them anything else. They will maintain the self delusion as long as they possibly have to.
Yeah, the thing is, like, they will just they really are like drones once they've been hollowed out of their actual individual will and free thought. Because like it doesn't matter like how much the new thing conflicts with the thing that they were advocating for before, they'll just accept it.
Well, I mean, Lord of Change? Question mark. Again, it's literally. I mean, one of their talking points is you can't stand still on a moving train. That is literally extol- extolling the virtues of change and entropy for its own sake, and decrying the idea of consistency or solidity. It's like this is one of the things that absolutely makes my brain explode. Have you ever heard them refer to straightforwardness as entitlement? Like straightforward causation or straightforward cause and effect or a expecting straightforward cause and effect are a sign of entitlement?
Yes, like I do this for you, I expect you to do this for me in return. Well, you're not entitled to my
Yeah,
services
how
or
dare you be transactional? That's so simplistic to expect uh to affect to expect effects to be followed by or causes to be followed by effects. The real intelligent people are aware of abstract variables and how irreducible all the abstract variables are. Therefore, objectivity and causality aren't real things.
like
Objectivity is just a childish delusion that people too stupid to deal with variables convince themselves of.
well, here's the thing. Like regarding entitlement, I literally heard the argument once that a man is not entitled to sex from a prostitute. Like literally, a man could pay the prostitute money, and the prostitute is not entitled in any way to have sex with the man, even though that's what the
And
entire stage.
not only is he not entitled, it's criminal and immoral of him to try to make a transaction of it. Never mind that transactional causality is sort of the entire basis for literally any measure of intelligence. But, again, this is pure Zinch. This is exactly what a real world version of Zinch would do and be. Is abstraction is better than straightforward linearness. Um, nebulousness is inherently superior and more intellectually and morally superior than defined consequences, etc., and so on. Transactions and causality are evil and delusions, and objectivity is bad. Meritocracy is a is a childish, dick-headed delusion that we have to deconvert you from.
And going back to corn, for example, like the most ridiculous thing is that you know should the Cornite champions and the greater demons and the bloodletters, if they should attack you, you are not allowed to defend yourself from the oncoming horde that wants to slaughter you and take your skull.
Yeah, again, Kyle Rittenhouse and Rosenbaum and I forget the other guy's name.
What about Penny, the guy from the New York subway who, was restraining that guy who was walking around the subway bus threatening to kill everyone?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it doesn't matter what the criminals do to you, only what you do to the criminals.
How dare you be entitled to your own self-defense?
How dare you be entitled to your own lives?
If that isn't the most Zinchian thing I've ever heard, I don't know what is. Your desire to continue existing is just your prudish allergy to the natural progress of the universe and the natural changes of the universe. Everything dies, so you should welcome death with open arms. Because change is good and for its own sake, don't you know? Literally, Zinch.
And I think one of the problems with this is that all of the policies that enable these things are being made by people who are, to a degree, insulated from the consequences of these.
Yeah.
People who don't live in these areas, or people who make decisions that affect states that live in Washington D.C., or people who have so much money that they can afford to live in gated communities with private security.
That's one of the tools. If I teach you to think only in abstract terms and I insulate you from reality enough, then you will do what I want you to do because you think in abstract terms and don't even consider reality to be important. Or again, objectivity and meritocracy are just delusional things that privileged people believe in. You have to grow up and glow up and not worry about those things anymore.
As much as they hate the rest of us, they will gladly sacrifice each other, to save themselves. Because, as you know, a few years ago, a demon prince of Slanesh did not kill himself.
And never mind the Cornite champion that we put in the cell with him the one day before he totally didn't do that.
Yeah, and we don't know who his other associates are. Actually, we do know. We just can't tell the rest of the country because we wouldn't want those people to step associated.
We wouldn't want the archdemons to be inconvenienced in their desire to corrupt everything.
Yes, and let's not forget the brave Cordite champion who flew in Las Vegas to assault the judge who would dare restrict him from claiming more skulls for the Skull Throne.
Which he then claimed the judge's skull for the Skull Throne. Yeah, that's...
It kind of is funny to watch. Here's the thing: you read about things like the collapse of the Roman Empire, but it's actually different when you're actually seeing the collapse happen before your very eyes.
It would be amusing if it weren't so goddamn tragic. I wish I could just extract myself from the consequences and and put my feet up and get a bowl of popcorn and just watch as everything burns. But unfortunately, that's not how things work. So, at the, but that's the thing. At this point, it's so absurd as to almost be amusing. We're literally almost in like a Joker style one bad day scenario. But like, I don't want to completely lose my mind and become the Joker. So if we could all just step away from the abyss before jumping into it, that would be good.
Well, and here's the thing: like once once chaos has dug itself in this deep and is spread this wide, there is nowhere you can run to escape it. Like just and like now, like everything that we previously enjoyed, everything that we might use to get away from the arguing, the bickering, the politics has just now been completely subverted.
And I mean, it's gotten to the point where even when we have victories, that will end up being used against us. Like for example, if Trump wins in 2024, cities will be on fire. And if he loses, cities will also be on fire. There is literally no version of events in 2024 where everyone just turns and goes, "Yup, that seems legit. You won't be needing us anymore." Wipes hands.
Well,
No, it's never going to happen.
well, the thing is, like, if Trump wins, the far left will basically lose their minds because they hate Trump to an utterly irrational degree. And if
Yeah,
Trump
he's the devil.
loses, and if Trump loses, Trump supporters just aren't going to believe it because they're not going to believe that Joe Biden could fuck up this fucking bad and still get reelected without
And
some
still
fortification going on.
yeah, be buoyed up by the establishment. And it's like, yeah, there is literally no ending to this particular chapter of this particular story that doesn't end with absurdity. And as amusing as that absurdity is going to be, we probably would be better off if we could somehow get to the point where it's like, well, that seems legit. No controversy to get upset about here. Yeah, no. That I would put all the money that I ever make in my life on the fact that that is not going to happen. There is no scenario where there's just well, you won't be needing us anymore. This seems totally legit. That's never going to happen. Because if Trump wins, then George, then the summer of George Floyd is going to look like a picnic. And if Trump loses, January 6th is going to look like a walk in a park. So, like, there is no way out at this point.
Well, here's the thing. Like in the past, I'm sure the establishment was manipulating things behind the scenes, but at least the machine was running fairly smoothly. Like people can
Yeah,
get on with their lives.
now the
Now,
establishment is so old and dilapidated and the machinery is so rusted that, like, it becomes a farce to even watch it work anymore.
yeah, like you don't trust that this thing is capable of running the way it's supposed to run.
I mean, how? Back in the last years of Trump's first presidency, the like trust in the media was down to what, like 23%? And I
Yeah,
can't imagine that it's gotten any better over Biden's presidency. And it's certainly not going to get any better if Trump gets in again, because they'll try to beat the Trump bad war drum again. And
yeah.
what happens when only 10% of the populace actually trust the media anymore? At that point, it's not even going to be possible to genuinely have an expose on anything, because if it gets so bad that like only 10% of people genuinely trust the media, and those are the most hardcore of the hardcore people who trust the media, even if the media starts somehow being honest again, it's not going to it's not going to matter, because we don't trust the media anymore, and nor should we. So the fuck.
It is a thing like the way that they're going after Trump, like how hard they're trying to just destroy this man. Like no one's going to trust that they didn't try and fuck with the election.
Yeah,
No one's going to believe that.
it again. Trump wins, and Antifa set cities on fire. Trump loses, and Proud Boys set cities on fire. And you will notice that in neither of these situations is there an option for cities not being on fire.
I would argue that there's a slightly less chance of the Proud Boys setting the cities
Right,
on fire.
but
we know Antifa well.
But also think about this: how much more are they going to ramp up the Trump hate train, the Trump derangement syndrome train during the election period? So how much are they going to try to keep mounting more and more weight against Trump until the day of the election? So,
I mean,
and given that Trump's support hardens every time they try to fuck with him, and given that they're almost invariably going to try to fuck with him even more in the coming months, how radical are the manga crowd going to end up getting simply by necessity of you keep fucking with us in a way that no one has ever been fucked with before? What do you expect us to do?
I mean, it's not just like the fact that Trump has been fucked with; it's the fact that they are screwing up so damn bad. Like the economy is in shambles. Like there's a border crisis. Like we're almost at the brink of World War III. Like,
yeah, we're supposed to prefer the establishment to the populist and libertarians, except that the establishment is a dilapidated house of cards that is going to go up in smoke the second someone even strikes a match.
Yeah, and I mean, just
all roads lead to absurd and like comical levels of rioting and stupidity. So, and here's the thing. Here's the other thing. Speaking of someone who is policy wise usually on the left somewhat, even if Biden wins, which dear God, but even if Biden wins, the left is also still not going to be happy either, because as we've been saying for the last like 3 election cycles, the people who are like the actual base of the left don't want Biden and like neocons and neoliberals. They want somebody like Bernie, somebody like Tulsi, somebody like Yang, somebody like Ro Khanna. They want their pet projects to actually be served. So even if Biden wins, not only are you going to have the hardcore Trump MAGA enthusiasts pissed off, justifiably in my opinion, but you're also going to have the why couldn't we have Bernie, why couldn't we have Tulsi, why couldn't we have Yang people pissed off, because the left at large hated Biden's guts to begin with, and nothing that Biden has done has pleased either the right or the left in his tenure. So, like, if Biden wins again, or God forbid, if Biden dies and we end up having to deal with Kamala, that is a case where you might actually get the Antifa types and the MAGA types standing arm in arm together, being like literally anyone but the establishment.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if this country could even survive 4 more years with Biden, because, like I said, we're almost at the brink of World War III, and our military readiness is in freaking shambles to the point where recruitment numbers are way down, because who the hell wants to fight for this shit?
I mean,
And so
last time my mom and I went to McDonald's, mind you, it was just the two of us, and we got fairly normal sized meals. It was $27.
Jesus.
$27 for 2 people to eat at McDonald's. That is the kind of money I would expect to spend at a nice sit-down restaurant, not at freaking McDonald's. And yet everything is like that. Have you tried getting bread or milk recently? It's like tripled in prices, and yet.
But I've cut down on my diet, so I don't even eat bread or milk. So, like, the only thing about me giving on this very strict diet is that there are a lot of food prices that I don't have to worry about. Unfortunately, I do still have to worry about the price of meat, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, let's not even get into that particular topic. Like, my mom is very good at bargain hunting, and so she's always been good at making dollars stretch. But like even with like Sam's Club and Costco and things intact, and even with the like Walmart memberships and stuff, it's still like again like just me and my mom. My brothers weren't even with us. Just me and my mom to go to McDonald's recently was $27 for 2 meals. That's freaking absurd.
Didn't they have like in California like an $18 Big Mac?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me because
Hold on, I'm actually gonna look this up real quick.
like I got my usual like 20 nuggets, large fry, milkshake, and apple pie, and my mom got like a quarter pounder, I think, and some fries and a Coke, and it was $27.
Yeah, it's here. December 2023. California's wage law could pave the way for $18 Big Macs. Like,
At that point, I think I speak for all of us when I say if the prices are basically going to be indistinguishable from a sit down restaurant, I would rather go to a sit down restaurant and eat something that wasn't going to murder me slowly. Like McDonald's tastes good, but sit down food tastes good too, and if the prices are going to be that comparable, then fuck me.
and personally, I just buy groceries and cook my own meals. Like sometimes I'll allow myself to indulge a bit, like on the weekends, but like mainly I just try and cook for myself because like it's cheaper overall and like I'm
Well, but
planning
I mean,
on
as you say, the price of meat is, let's not even, I don't even know off the top of my head, but it can't be anything good.
yeah. When I was like I recall a few years back, like the price of like two ribeyes at Walmart were like $20. Now it's like 30.
Hmm.
It's like it, how are people supposed to live with price increases this freaking high?
I That's the thing, though. I don't know if they, because here's the thing. Not only was the last time me and my mom went to McDonald's at like $27, we're in an extremely rural area, mind you. Like we are the kind of place we are sitting in the kind of place where like this kind of fluctuation in prices doesn't really hit us that badly, but it's certainly hitting us that badly now. So like if it's happening to us in like the most rural part of northern Pennsylvania, I can't imagine what it's like for anyone who actually lives in a city.
I mean, I live slightly outside the city, but that's not much better, honestly.
Hmm.
And God, it's just all right. Well, we've been going for an hour. Let's see, we call it here.
Hmm.
I do have a topic already in mind for next week. Next week we'll be talking about the real world equivalent of the Tyranids.
Yeah. Oy vey.
That's right. Next week we will be talking about the migrants at the border.
Hey. Oy vey.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong, Dalton.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I really desperately wish it wasn't so analogous. I really desperately wish we were in the early stages of both a chaos invasion and a Tyranid one, but yeah, we are. Fortunately, we're still in the early stages, but we'll probably all live to see the intermediate stages, if nothing else.
All right, everybody, I've been Mystery.
And I've been Dalton Horniman, the Authenticator, and we've been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.